My parents spent my wedding fund on my brother's third wedding and want me to have another ceremony for them. But I refused. Hi, I'm Fiona. Growing up in a family where love was distributed like rations wasn't easy. My brother Connor was the golden child, the one who could set the house on fire, and our parents would blame the matches. And then there was me, always hovering in the periphery, the daughter they acknowledged when convenient. I met Blake at a coffee roasting workshop in downtown Portland 3 years ago. He was different, genuine, attentive, and incredibly supportive. We clicked instantly, bonding over our shared obsession with vinyl records and farmers market adventures. When he proposed last April under the string lights at our favorite rooftop garden, I said yes without hesitation. We were ecstatic, dreaming of a beautiful autumn wedding with falling leaves and cider toasts. We had plans and I had a wedding fund, $25,000 that my parents had promised would be there for me, just as it had been for Connor 3 times over. But my dream started crumbling one Sunday afternoon during a family barbecue at their house in the suburbs. Connor arrived late, as usual, with a woman none of us had met before. Within an hour, he announced his third engagement. The backyard erupted with congratulations and champagne toasts, while I sat there, a frozen smile plastered on my face, gripping my glass of lemonade so hard I thought it might shatter. Later, when I casually mentioned our wedding venue deposit to my parents, the cheerful atmosphere evaporated like morning fog. "You know, Fiona, we had to use some of your wedding fund for Connor's ceremony," my dad said, suddenly very interested in his burger. "He needed it more. You understand, right?" I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. "Use some of it? What does that mean?" I managed to ask, my voice barely steady. My mom chimed in, her tone unusually defensive. "Well, it's all gone. We thought you'd take longer to find someone given your history. Connor needed it. His last divorce was expensive and he deserves a fresh start." Just like that, gone. "You promised me," I said, my voice shaking. "You promised that money was for my wedding. How could you decide on your own to give it all to Connor for his third marriage?" "It was necessary, Fiona," my dad explained as if talking to a child. "Your brother has been through a lot with his divorces. He needed a proper wedding to set things right. You've always been the practical one. You'll figure it out. And what about me? Don't I deserve something too?" I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against their deck. "I've been planning and saving with Blake, counting on that fund." My mom's response was cold, dismissive. "You should have been more proactive about your relationships, Fiona. We made a decision based on necessity." I left the barbecue early, heart racing and mind reeling. Blake was waiting for me at our apartment, and seeing his face was the only thing that felt right that night. I broke down completely when I got home. Blake held me on our couch as I sobbed, the unfairness of it all crushing down on me like a physical weight. We talked for hours, his anger matching mine, his disbelief echoing my own. "We'll have our wedding, Fiona," Blake reassured me, his voice steady even as his jaw clenched. "No matter what. Just us and the people who actually care about us." But I needed answers first. I needed to confront them properly, not in the chaos of a family gathering. So, 3 days later, I arranged to meet my parents for coffee at a downtown cafe. Neutral territory. The morning was gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. As soon as we sat down with our drinks, their lattes, my black coffee, I couldn't hold back. "Why did you do it? Why did you give Connor my wedding fund without even discussing it with me?" My dad sighed, rubbing his temples like I was giving him a headache. "We thought we were making the right choice. Connor's situation was urgent. He needed to settle down after everything he's been through. And what about what I'm going through? What about my wedding?" My voice cracked, the hurt bleeding through despite my efforts to stay composed. My mom looked around nervously, lowering her voice as if I was making a scene. "Your brother needed more support, Fiona. You've always been the strong one, the independent one. You don't need us the way he does. So that's it? You decide on my behalf because I'm strong? You spend my wedding fund as if it's nothing?" The disbelief and hurt mixed into a bitter cocktail that burned my throat. "We didn't think you'd be getting married so soon." my dad added, attempting to justify their decision. And honestly, we thought you might, well, after Daniel broke off your engagement 5 years ago, we weren't sure you'd try again. That was a low blow, bringing up Daniel. That's not your decision to make, I said louder than I intended. Other customers glanced over. It was my fund promised to me. How could you gamble my dreams away on Connor's third attempt at marriage? The conversation spiraled from there. They talked about family obligations, about supporting each other, about how Connor had struggled more than I had. But all I heard was their clear preference for my brother. The truth I'd known my whole life but had never wanted to fully accept. This isn't just about money, I finally said, standing up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. It's about trust. It's about respect. You've shown me exactly where your priorities lie, and sadly, I'm not even on the list. I left the cafe feeling both liberated and devastated. The confrontation had laid everything bare. My parents had chosen Connor over me without remorse, without even a genuine apology. That night, lying awake next to Blake in our small bedroom, a sense of resolve settled over me. My parents had made their choice. Now I was making mine. They would not dictate my happiness. This was the beginning of my new life with Blake, without the shadows of favoritism. The emotional toll was heavy in the weeks that followed. I spent sleepless nights replaying every conversation, every excuse they'd made. It was clear they saw Connor as the one who needed protection and endless chances, while I was just expected to cope, to be resilient, to handle everything alone. Blake noticed my struggles. One evening, he came home from his job at the architecture firm with a stack of bridal magazines and a determined look on his face. "We're doing this," he announced. "Maybe not the way we originally planned, but we're having our wedding, our way." And so we began rebuilding our dreams from scratch. We chose a small botanical garden on the outskirts of the city for our ceremony. Nothing like the lavish country club venues Connor had enjoyed for his weddings. The rental fee was a fraction of what we'd originally budgeted, leaving us room for other meaningful touches. Our decorations became a labor of love. Blake's sister Vanessa helped me make centerpieces from mason jars and wildflowers. His best friend Derek offered to photograph the wedding as our gift. My college roommate Natasha, who owned a small bakery, insisted on making our cake at cost. The guest list was the hardest part. We included only 60 people, those who truly cared for us. No pretenses, no obligatory invitations to distant relatives who'd never shown interest in our lives. And then came the biggest decision, my parents. "I don't want them there," I told Blake one night as we addressed invitations at our kitchen table. "Is that terrible? Am I being cruel?" Blake set down his pen and took my hand. "After what they did, after how they treated you, that's not cruel, Fiona. That's self-preservation." "But they're my parents," I whispered, tears welling up. "Everyone will judge me. Connor will make sure of it." "Let them judge," Blake said firmly. "This is our day, our celebration. We get to decide who shares it with us." So I made the conscious decision not to send them an invitation. It hurt. A deep, aching hurt that settled in my chest and wouldn't leave. But it was necessary to protect my own well-being and our happiness. They had chosen their path, and now I was choosing mine. The planning of our modest wedding became unexpectedly therapeutic. With each decision, the eucalyptus in my bouquet, the acoustic guitarist Blake found, the handwritten vows we were preparing, I reclaimed a piece of myself that had been overshadowed by my family's expectations and favoritism. Blake stood by me through it all, his support unwavering. When I second-guessed our venue choice, he reminded me of the first time we'd visited that botanical garden together, how I'd said I could stay there forever among the roses and magnolia. When I worried about the budget, he reminded me that the best weddings weren't about money. They were about meaning. We were building something true and lasting, far from the shadows of betrayal and broken promises. This wasn't just about creating a wedding day anymore. It was about laying the foundation for our future. A future where our choices mattered, where we were free from the weight of unfair family dynamics. This was our declaration of independence. Our wedding day arrived in late September, exactly as I dreamed. The morning dawned crisp and golden, the kind of autumn day that feels stolen from a storybook. The botanical garden was bathed in soft sunlight, the air fragrant with the last blooms of summer mixed with the earthy scent of fallen leaves. It was simple, nothing like the elaborate affairs Connor had staged, but it was absolutely perfect for us. Blake and I had chosen every detail with intention. The aisle was lined with lanterns and sprigs of lavender. A string quartet played as our guests arrived, their faces bright with genuine happiness. There were no massive floral arrangements, no ice sculptures, no unnecessary extravagance, just beauty in its most honest form. Vanessa helped me into my dress, a simple ivory gown I'd found at a vintage boutique for $300. As I looked at myself in the garden's small cottage mirror, I realized I'd never felt more like myself. "You're radiant," Vanessa said, adjusting my flower crown. "And you're doing this for all the right reasons." Walking down that aisle with Blake's father, who'd insisted on the honor when he learned my own dad wouldn't be there, I felt my heart swell. Blake's face when he saw me told me everything I needed to know. We were doing this right. We were doing this for us. Our vows were promises of partnership and unconditional support, spoken from the heart with tears and laughter mixed together. When we kissed, the applause from our small gathering felt like the sweetest music I'd ever heard. The reception was an intimate celebration. We'd rented the garden's pavilion, decorating it with string lights and more wildflowers. Natasha's cake, a simple 3-tier lemon lavender creation, was better than any expensive wedding cake I'd ever tasted. We danced, we laughed, we shared stories with people who genuinely loved us. Blake's toast made everyone cry. Fiona taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up, who supports you, who celebrates your happiness without conditions. Everyone here today is our real family. Later that evening, as we shared our wedding photos on social media, the reactions poured in. Friends and distant relatives congratulated us, commenting on how happy we looked, how beautiful everything was, how you could feel the love in every picture. But not everyone was pleased. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing with texts from my parents. I'd blocked their regular numbers, but they'd found ways around it, messaging through Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. "How could you not invite us to your own wedding?" My mother's message read, dripping with indignation. "After everything we've done for you, we raised you, Fiona, we gave you everything." My father's response was colder, more cutting. "Ungrateful doesn't even begin to describe this. After all the years of support, all the sacrifices we made, clearly you've chosen your path. Don't expect us to be there when you need us." Connor chimed in too, his message more aggressive. "You embarrassed our whole family. Everyone's asking why Mom and Dad weren't at your wedding. Thanks for making them look like terrible parents." The messages were a jarring intrusion into our perfect day. Blake and I tried to ignore them and enjoy our honeymoon weekend at a cabin in the Cascade Mountains. But the barrage didn't stop. Extended family members I barely knew started reaching out, questioning why I'd excluded my parents, hinting at the importance of family unity, suggesting I'd made a mistake. "Your mom is devastated," my Aunt Caroline wrote. "She cries every day. How could you hurt her like this?" Connor's wife, number 3, whose name I could barely remember, sent me a long message about forgiveness and family values. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I held firm, supported by Blake and those who understood. We'd made our decision, and it had been the right one. Our wedding had been exactly what we needed, free from tension, free from the weight of their expectations. Then, 3 weeks later, the phone calls started. I'd blocked my parents' main numbers, but my mother called from my aunt's phone one afternoon while I was at work. I answered, thinking it was actually my aunt. "Fiona, please, just listen," my mom said before I could hang up. "Your father and I have been thinking. It's not right what happened. You deserve better. We want to throw you a proper wedding, a big one, where we can invite all our friends and family, our treat, of course." I moved into an empty conference room for privacy. Mom, Blake and I are already married. We had our wedding, the one we wanted. But that was just a tiny thing, honey, she pressed, her voice taking on that familiar manipulative sweetness. We're talking about something significant, a real celebration. Think about your father, how much it would mean to him to walk you down the aisle. He had that chance. You both did. You chose differently. That's when my father took the phone, his voice unusually weak. Fiona, I've been feeling very unwell lately. The doctor mentioned stress could be aggravating my heart condition. Not seeing you get married properly, not being part of your big day, it's taking a real toll on my health. The guilt trip was so transparent it almost made me laugh. Almost. This was their signature move. The same tactic they'd used my entire life to manipulate me into compliance. Dad, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, but our wedding has already happened. It was real and meaningful to us. You choosing not to support us beforehand doesn't give you the right to demand a do-over now. There was a heavy pause. Then my mother's voice returned, sharper this time, the sweetness completely gone. You're being incredibly selfish, Fiona. After everything we've done for you, all the sacrifices we've made, this is how you repay us, by embarrassing us in front of our entire social circle. The old Fiona might have caved, might have apologized and tried to mend things, but I had grown, fortified by Blake's love and the support of people who genuinely cared about me. No, Mom. What's embarrassing is using your daughter's wedding fund for your son's third marriage without a second thought. Blake and I are happy with how we celebrated our love. That's all that matters. I hung up, my hands shaking but my resolve stronger than ever. The call ended abruptly, my mother's indignant gasp cut off mid-breath. I knew this wouldn't be the end of it. But I felt a strength within me I'd never experienced before. I wasn't the same person who'd once feared their disapproval, who'd bent herself into uncomfortable shapes trying to earn their love. Blake was waiting for me when I got home. Takeout Chinese food spread across our small dining table. One look at my face told him everything. They called? He asked. I nodded, sinking into a chair. They want to throw us another wedding, a proper one, for them and their friends. You've got to be kidding me. I wish I were. And Dad's apparently dying now. Heart condition, stress from not being at my wedding. Blake snorted. The same heart condition he's had for 20 years without it ever being a problem? The one that didn't stop him from running that marathon last year? Despite everything, I smiled. Blake saw through their manipulation as clearly as I now did. But they weren't finished. 3 days later, an envelope arrived in our mailbox, official-looking, with my parents' attorney's return address embossed in the corner. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was an invoice. Line by line, it detailed every expense my parents had ever incurred on my behalf. Private school tuition from grades 9 through 12, college textbook expenses, my car insurance from ages 16 to 22, the security deposit for my first apartment, even a loan of $200 from 7 years ago that I'd honestly forgotten about. At the bottom, a subtotal $127,000. Below that, a note in my father's handwriting. Since you've chosen to exclude us from your life and show such disrespect for our family, we believe it's only fair that you assume these costs. Payment plans available upon request. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. Blake came up behind me, reading over my shoulder. Are they serious? He asked, his voice caught between disbelief and anger. Is this even legal? It's manipulation, I said, a strange calm washing over me. It's just another tactic. They can't control me, so they're trying to scare me. I took a photo of the invoice and the note, forwarded it to the few family members I still trusted, and then I did something that felt both terrifying and necessary. I ripped the papers in half, then quarters, then eighths, until they were confetti on our kitchen floor. That night, I drafted an email. It took me 3 hours and 7 revisions, but when I finally sent it, the message was clear and firm. I outlined their lack of respect for my autonomy. I detailed their continuous attempts to manipulate my emotions and control my decisions. I explained that their treatment of me versus Connor had damaged me deeply and that I could no longer allow that toxicity in my life. I stated that Blake and I deserved peace, respect, and space to build our own future. And then the hardest line to write, "Please do not contact me again." I hit send and immediately felt a surge of freedom mixed with inevitable sadness. The weeks following that email were filled with a profound, liberating slants. I blocked their numbers, their email addresses, and all social media connections. It was drastic but necessary. A line drawn in the sand that marked the beginning of a truly independent life. Of course, they tried one final time. They showed up at our apartment on a Saturday morning, unannounced. Blake answered the door, giving me time to compose myself before facing them. When I came to the doorway, they looked older somehow, more desperate. "Fiona, please," my mom said, reaching toward me. "We need to talk. We can work this out." I stayed in the doorway, not inviting them in. "There's nothing left to discuss. You received my email. I meant every word." "We're still your parents," my dad said, his voice hard. "You can't just cut us out like we mean nothing. I gave you both every chance to be part of my life in a respectful, supportive way." I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You chose not to take those opportunities. What you call meaning nothing is actually me setting boundaries that should have existed years ago." They tried to argue, my mom moving to tears, my dad to anger, but I remained resolute. Blake and I deserve to live in peace without manipulation and guilt. This is my final decision. Please respect my wishes and do not contact me again. After a tense silence, they left. As I watched them drive away, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't fully realized I'd been carrying. In the months that followed, Blake and I truly thrived. We painted our apartment in colors we loved. Sage green in the bedroom, deep blue in the living room. We adopted a rescue cat we named Pepper. We celebrated our small victories and supported each other through challenges. Life without the constant stress of familial expectations was lighter, more joyful, more authentically ours. We took a road trip down the California coast, spent weekends hiking in the Columbia River Gorge, hosted dinner parties with friends who'd become our chosen family. Each decision we made was ours alone, untainted by guilt or obligation. One evening, sitting on our balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Blake took my hand. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked gently. "Cutting ties?" I squeezed his hand, my heart full of peace. "No, because it led us here, to this moment, to a life where we're respected and loved for who we are, not for what we can give or how well we comply." Reflecting on everything, I realized the importance of choosing your own path. It wasn't just about escaping toxicity. It was about honoring yourself, about living a life filled with genuine love and respect. I learned that sometimes the hardest decisions are the most necessary, and that true happiness often requires us to stand firm against the very forces that claim to love us most. As I share this story, I hope it serves as a reminder. While family can be a source of great love, it should never cost you your self-respect or happiness. Thank you for being part of my journey. Always choose a path that respects you. Stay true, stay bold,